Men, we live in an internal penis swinging contest with the world. And we always measure ourselves against each other or the other man to figure out who's the alpha, who's not. And what happens is at the age of 40 and older, sometimes even 35, when your body starts changing and you can no longer do what you used to do, and you have defined yourself by what you do and what you have, you enter into something called a midlife crisis.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to redefine and figure out who you are.
We are live. What up, fellas? Welcome to another edition of the Father's Heart podcast with Sean and Cole and George.
And George. Put some respect on it.
What's going on? Just like I put respect on yours. Yo, listen, I do that every single week. I go, welcome to another edition of the Father's Heart podcast.
You do.
With Sean and Cole.
Bro,
and then I go,
I'm just...
And George. He says, and George, I'm like the third wheel. I understand. Let's get rolling.
Man, so you got to mix it up. You got to say George and Cole.
Listen, it's too early. Well, listen. I need you to fall back on that. But listen, man, it is. I am like trying to get over. It's not even a cold. I had somebody today, yesterday, that I had COVID.
Oh, yeah, that's real.
But no, not ask me like, are you okay? The first thing they asked is like, you got COVID?
Well, do you? Did you answer?
Right. That's a legitimate question in 2023.
Yes, I did.
I'm trying to act like that's not legit.
I did. Well, I don't think it's legit.
They probably was looking like, get out your feelings and answer the question.
Listen, like, if you want to go with legit and not legit, that's not legit to just to come out and say, do you have COVID? I don't think it's legit.
I think so in 2023. I think it's very much legit. You hacking and coughing and lost your voice, and you know what I'm saying?
No. What did I tell you? I lost my voice. I didn't say I was sneezing. I didn't say I was coughing. None of that. I just said I didn't have a voice.
That's a symptom.
When somebody...
You know what? Listen, we're going to get right to it. I ain't even trying to hear y'all. Listen, I'm excited tonight, man.
6 feet.
Did you just say 6 feet?
I did.
He definitely told you 6 feet. Virtually. 6 feet virtually. At that. 6 feet virtually.
Let me get my sanitizer, because I don't mess around.
Man.
Cole, you better not get no hand sanitizer with your internet.
You like no mask in here.
Your internet will start jacking up. Well, listen, you heard me. So listen, man, I am gonna get out of the way because my voice is jacked up, man, and I need to save my voice. So Cole and George, y'all gonna run this thing, man. I'm gonna sit back and I'll add a little bit, but I need to introduce a good friend of mine, man, who is on the podcast tonight, Marshall. Marshall was an animal, man. I met Marshall a few years ago, went through ET's Game Changers. Actually, I met him beforehand. And the crazy thing about it, man, he hit me up. He was like, yo, I saw that you went through this program, blah, 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 blah. Should I go through it? And my thing, man, is that I would never hate on another person, right? Because I could easily, at that time, I had my own program. And my thing is all about impact, right? And my thing was, I was like, listen, you need to go through their program because their program is the thing that helped me get to where I am, right? And so that was my thing. I was like, yo, go get everything that you can get. Gave him some steps. Hit ET up and said, yo, this dude is about to come your way. And now, listen, man, he went through that program a few years ago. And ever since then, man, Marshall has been killing the game. And man, he has a powerful story. He worked with men, but he does it differently. And he worked with men who have stories that we only talk about behind closed doors. And so I want to get out of the way, man. I want to introduce you guys, man, to Marshall. Marshall, welcome to our Father's Heart podcast, man.
Yo, what's up, Sean? Hey, yo. So real quick, let me put out there. This is typical Game Changers. Hello, my name is Robert Marshall, and I help boys and men overcome adverse childhood and traumatic life experiences. Click. All right. So yo, I'm so excited to be on the show. And let me just give Sean his flowers, because I don't think I've ever got to do this publicly. This is the first time. So I'm gonna give him to him because he deserves it. No, he deserves it.
Absolutely.
So when I first met Sean, I was a pastor, a speaker, but I was more of an itinerant preacher at that time, budding into my purpose and different things. And I saw Sean's excellence from a distance. I didn't know who he was. And when I looked at Sean's stuff and I heard him talk, I'm like, yo, I want to be like him. And I kept, and so, after a while, as a graphic designer, I tried to go to his page and see what he had and looked at a couple other people, see what they had. And I'm like, I'm a graphic designer. I could do this. And so I would start mimicking what they did, but I still was missing something. And I did not understand what in the world I was missing. You know how people get inspired and, they get inspired to copy and paste your stuff. And so I was one of those people. I was like, man. And so I just reached out to Sean and I was like, yo, bro, please let me know what's up. What's this? Sean, he led me to the group. He led me to ET's program. And from there, the rest is history. And also during the program, Sean literally was my guide through it. Like, Marshall, don't quit. Marshall, don't do this. Like, listen. And his words have always been to me, stick with the assignment. Stick to the assignment. And if you know Sean, that is his mantra.
Absolutely.
Stick to the assignment. And from that moment to this moment, I've stuck to the assignment. My assignment being telling the stories and creating safe spaces for boys and men to overcome adverse childhood and traumatic life experiences. Now, how we do that, we work with 4 different types of men. We work with fathers who did not have fathers. We work with underrepresented student groups. We work with men returning home from incarceration. But what we are most known for and what we're very passionate about is helping boys and male survivors of sexual trauma come into a place of wholeness and healing for their own lives.
Wait.
There's so
what's
there's
up?
so much.
Go ahead, Cole. Because you gotta tell me.
There's so what, Sean, you ain't supposed to even be talking.
You're right.
Right.
You can't
Sit
even
back,
talk,
man.
Sean. Listen.
Sit back. You delegated to me and Cole, bro.
Man, Mr. Marshall, can you first tell the audience what is adverse childhood? Can you talk a little bit about what that is first? Because most people hear it but don't know exactly what that is. Could you at least speak to that first?
So adverse childhood experience, many of us, we talk about something that's called ACE. You might hear it, ACEs, but what it is basically, it is an assessment that helps measure it helps measure the impact of violence, victimization, and perpetuation, and the lifelong health impacts of traumatic life experiences. So adverse childhood experiences equate to any experience that you experienced as a child that caused some level of trauma that created the adverse experience that created some level of trauma that impacted you in such a way that it has um, impacted you in a very deep or sometimes even permanent way, whether that be mentally, physically, emotionally.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I go next, Cole? I got a question. Typically people don't get into these fields or in this helping type of profession without a personal story. You named us the 4 type of fathers that you help, that you deal with. In regards to your story, where do you fall in those 4 categories? What was your story coming up?
I fall into all of them with the exception of incarceration. I grew up in and so my story is I grew up in the South, a small city called Brunswick, Georgia, where everybody knows your name. Everybody knows your mama, your grandmama name as well. But I moved there, we lived there, and in my house, I did not have a father. My mom lied to me for 25 years of my life, telling me that my biological father, was dead. When my biological father was not dead, he was in Philly and was married to some other woman. He kept her, and so she kept him a secret because eventually I found out he was a jerk and he was married and she was the pastor's wife. And he was her mechanic. And, they kind of got together and started working on other parts, with the exception of car parts. And so I grew up I grew up without a father, and because of that, I struggled in school. Also, I became a victim of sexual abuse starting at the age of 4. At the age of 4, I experienced my first sexual experience with a family member. And I wrote a book called Echoes, and it's a book that chronicles my experiences. But from that moment, at a 4-year-old, when my cousin, he was probably about 16 or 17, whipped his manhood out and said, "Hey, Marshall, come put your mouth on this." That was at the age of 4. From the age of 4 to 20 years old, I then experienced I had 9 sexual abusers over my lifetime, over from the age of 4 to 19, 20 years of age, male and female. I also experienced urban sexual trafficking as well. So within that time, sexually abused by pastors, by politicians, by educators, by trusted people in the community. Never once was it the strange person who was carrying, candy at the park, but it looked like a pastor. It looked like a teacher. Not look like it was. It looked like police officer. And so I was groomed. Also, I grew up in church, so I'm a church kid, and I grew up in an environment of sensuality, spirituality, and sexuality. And I grew up in a holiness church, and we have a high value of holiness. But what would happen is a lot of the preachers who would preach about holiness were the same people that I wound up being sexually abused by throughout the tenure of my adolescence. To be honest, I did not know that I was being abused at the time. I didn't have the verbiage for it. I just thought I just thought that it was my fault and that I was nasty. The manipulation started in the 5th grade, and I just posted a video of this story in the book. I call him the preacher. The preacher started sex abusing me when I was in 5th grade, and then started sexually grooming me as I got older. And what I mean by sexually grooming me, basically passing me around to other friends in the community that he knew were into the same thing. But it started at the age of 5 in 5th grade. We were at a concert. I was walking home in the deep South. Everybody knows everybody. I'm walking home back in the day. He stops me. He says, "Hey, why don't you get in the truck? I'll take you home." I said, "Okay, no problem." Didn't think about anything of it. He says, "Hey, I'm starting a church. Let me take you to this church." He pulls up to this abandoned building. He has keys to the building. He opens the door, and all I remember, I don't know how, I don't remember when, I don't remember the conversation, but all I remember is being put in a small room on a table, and physically, my first time experiencing any type of real sexual intercourse with full penetration at 5th grade on that table. When he was finished, he looked at me and asked me, he said, you liked that, didn't you? You liked that, didn't you? And the 5th grade, I said, I don't know. And then he looked at me, he said, well, something's wrong with you. That's the spirit of perversion. You need to go pray and ask God to deliver you from the demon of perversion.
Wait, man. So,
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just took this real deep, real fast.
Yeah, no. Listen, okay. I knew from what you do and the descriptions of the categories that you had a story. I had no idea what it's going to be, but I need to say a couple of things. Number one, your transparency, your vulnerability, and your honesty. There's not words to just let you know, number one, how much your story is needed. How much your story is needed, and for you, because let me tell you something. Sean said earlier that I'm a therapist, so I hear these type of stories all the time, but people are not publicly talking about this. People are not, and it happens so much. It happens so much. Is I can't think of words right now. How much it happens, how much we hear about it, but people want to keep it covered or keep it a secret, or and you know, it's a lot of different reasons, shame and pride and different things like that. But you're going to help, you have helped, and I'm sure you're going to help so many people being able to vividly and openly and honestly tell your story. So I just, hats off and kudos to you. And I thank you for answering that question as deep as you want to call it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Yeah, Cole, you was going to say something too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, please don't apologize for taking us into a deep space, because we don't have a lot of time, and what you just shared really is a requirement of change, and so change has to happen as expedient as it needs to happen, because we are living in a time where young men are experiencing this right now, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you said that just really was a term I have never heard, and it just spoke to me. Urban sexual trafficking. And so I wonder, can you speak a little to that and what that is? Because I've heard of sexual trafficking, and it's interesting in my space as I'm thinking, urban sexual trafficking just made me look, it sounds different versus sexual trafficking. And so I'm finding myself struggling with, when I hear those two different terms, I also see two different genders and demographics. So I don't know if that's on my own bias, but I really, can you speak to that?
Yeah. So that is actually a term in my work that I've coined and I've created. In the work that I have, and I'm gonna answer your question like this: the work that I do, when you get into the depth of it, you realize that a lot of the terminologies that we use were not created from people who look like you and me. The statistics that we hear oftentimes do not include the stories and the narratives of brown and black people and in urban communities. Before I answer your question, can I just throw these out at you?
Please,
Did you know that now these are the statistics that are out there, right? That 5% of boys grades 5 through 8 and 5% of boys in grades 9 through 12 said that they had been sexually abused. More male victims are assaulted by 2 or more assailants than females, suggesting that most of the time it's gang rape. Up to them, this is the famous statistic. Out of 1 in 6 men report having had unwanted direct sexual contact with an older person by the age of 16, non-direct contact sexual behavior, and 1 in 4 men report boyhood sexual victimization. On average, boys' first sexual experience happened before the age of 10. And boys are most commonly abused by males, 50 to 75%. Abuse by females is more covert and may be considered sexual initiation, although he may deny the abuse because he experienced some level of pleasure. I wanted to throw these out there because I have looked at almost every one of these statistics and the actual the scholar who wrote it. And most people don't know, when you throw out statistics, typically many people just take them for granted, but don't measure or ask deeper questions about where do they get this statistic from, what methodologies did they use to do these. And when I look deeper, they were not in urban communities. Oftentimes, they were using data that was pulled from police systems and calls. Most of this stuff is from reported, I'm going to say it again, reported data that comes from police systems or organizations that work with survivors. Number one, regardless if you're black or white or brown, most men do not report sexual abuse if they are a victim. Two, most men don't even identify that they've been sexually abused, and especially if it was by a woman, until almost 20 to 25 years after the abuse has happened.
Yep.
Number three, most males that experience, boys or men who experience sexual abuse at the hands of a woman, oftentimes don't see it as such because they may have had an orgasm, because they had an erection. And if they had an erection, if they had an orgasm, then they don't see how it could be abuse if it felt good and they didn't fight. And most of the time, most men who've experienced sexual trauma from a sexual traumatic experience from a male are oftentimes too shameful, confused, and afraid to even mention it. So these are some of the issues. And so this research, these statistics do not include, let me say that again, Black and brown people. You know, number one, why? Because we don't report anything until the police, because of our relationships. I sit in rooms, classrooms, lecture halls around the country and ask that question all the time. How many of you may have reported anything to the police? And if they do, it's not going to start with I was touched, I was abused, whatnot. So I said that to say this about your question. Urban sexual trafficking, oftentimes when we think about sexual trafficking, we think about, the movie scene where, the white girl or the girl is tied up and they're, put in a car, a trunk, a moving train, and they're moved from one place to another.
Yes.
Yeah. That is sexual trafficking, and it does happen. But that is not the only type of sexual trafficking that happens. The phrase that I used was urban sexual trafficking. Number one, most of the people in urban communities can't afford half of the stuff that you see on the movies. Yeah, that's number one. But what happens is when I talk about urban sexual trafficking, I'm talking about where a person is sexually taken advantage of, maybe because of age, sex, sexuality, or maybe because of whatever, manipulation, however, and they are sexually abused by an individual, and then they are passed along to another individual from the same individual that initiated them into the abuse. So some of it we may say, hey, it may be, they call it, some people can call it gang rape. Some of them where people are literally passed, they call sex rings, where they pass from person to person to person to person, place to place. Oh, and with males, it looks radically different. Women is covert. You can see it with males, and especially if it's by a woman, because it may be something that as young men, right? Let's say this boy is about 16, 17 years old, maybe even 14, 15, 16, and he is at his sexual prime, right? At that time, hormones they're everywhere. And you have a 40-year-old woman who is having sexual relations with him. Matter of fact, I have somebody who's just like that in the book. who's 40 years old, having sexual relations with him. She is dominating him in the bedroom. We call them cougars, right? We've even given them a name. We don't call them abusers. We call them cougars. And so she then says to her girlfriend, yo, I have this dude, this little kid, tenderoni, whatever you want to call him, that's rocking my world. Hey, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell him we're going on a trip, and then you'll be there with us, and then I'll make sure that he's comfortable with you and me. And so we can either get them together, or while I'm gone, you can get them. And then when I come back, y'all be done. Urban sexual trafficking.
Yeah.
So, something you said. Oh, go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry.
No, I would go ahead. I want you to say that, George, because I have a different kind of question. So go ahead.
No, I just listening to your story and your descriptions, and it's just something that I just want to just like reiterate that you said earlier when you were telling your story. You said even in your experiences, it was never, and this is the most important part of it all, it was never the stranger in the park.
No.
That was waving the candy.
Nah.
It was always someone that was in your community or in your circle that's supposed to be, and we say things in our community like it takes a village, but that's very hard to it's very difficult to subscribe to that when underneath the shadows this type of thing is going on.
Yeah,
it's very hard, and you want to go back to the good old days where everybody could discipline kids or everybody could take kids off, or you can go over here and go over there, but that's not, you know what I'm saying? Listen, like, it's not always ideal.
Bro, let me tell you, the good old days was not the good old days. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. I've traveled across the country doing, and I'm talking about, Sean knows, I've done grassroots work. I have written a book. I've gone from city to city, having facilitated conversations about sexual abuse, events around the country, building and talking up to families, to churches, to political organizations, whoever will host me, have us. I've done this in different cities. And do you know the average age of the person the man that comes to my events? They are between the ages of 40 and 60.
That's when
40, John, they're your age, bro. Between 40 and 60 years old. And you know what why they come at this time? Let me tell you.
And what part you want him to say again? You want him to say my age again, or that age group?
I was thinking age. Sean fall right in the middle because he said between 40 and 60. So 50 is right in the middle. So I can see, I know what he meant when he said your age.
And the only reason why I suggested that he say the age again, because I think that's a powerful number.
Now this is my research, between 40 and 60 years old. Do you know why these men come? These are men in this age bracket have typically already raised kids. They already have been married. They may have grandchildren. But what happens at the age of 40? Your libido goes down.
Yeah.
Your strength starts to, you're not as strong as you used to. Your sexual energy is not what it used to be. Your strength, your body, it starts to get older, and you start to age. And here is the problem. Most men in that time frame define their worth by and their identity by what they have and what they can do. Yeah. I'll prove it. Anytime you introduce yourself as a man, the first thing that you often ask is, hi, my name is, what's your name, and what do you do? Because men, we live in an internal penis swinging contest with the world. And we always measure ourselves against each other or the other man to figure out who's the alpha, who's not. And what happens is, at the age of 40 and older, sometimes even 35, when your body starts changing and you can no longer do what you used to do, and you have defined yourself by what you do and what you have, you enter into something called a midlife crisis.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And you're trying to redefine and figure out who you are. because you're not the young one anymore. You're not the strongest one anymore. And so you switch over to a different season in your life where you now have to become the sage. You're no longer the warrior. You're the wise man. You're the sage. It's time for you to give wisdom, to give and right, gray beards, right? And here's the problem. If you never had anyone who was a sage or a wise man for you, it's scary because you don't know what it looks like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So let me ask you this. So going through what you went through, you have a family now. And so how has that impacted or helped your fathering, that your kids know what a real man is, right? Like how has that impacted you? And I use that term real man wisely, right? You know what I mean? Because some people get taught, get that twisted what a real man is. So let's just say, like, how has that impacted your fathering? Let's just leave it there.
So I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. My children are the reason why I started this journey. And let me tell you why. I grew up without a father. I grew up poor. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through high school. I moved to Chicago at the age of 17 with $1,000 to my name, a $500 tuition bill that was due the very next day. And I had no choice but to make it work. So I had to struggle. I had to fight. I've lived with over 9 families in my entire life. And when I had my sons, I have 2 boys, and I have a 7-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. It's 2 boys and 1 girl. I had my 2 boys, and you know what happens, Sean? I started to become jealous of my kids. Now, I'll say this. I may not be a lot of things, but I know I'm a great father because I always endeavor to be the father that I never had. But what happened to my heart was I got jealous and envious of my kids because I realized that they had the father that I always wanted, but would never have the privilege of having.
That's deep.
And I realized looking at my boys one day that something's wrong with me. Something's wrong. Something's broken somewhere because I love my kids, but I was coming into the point where I was jealous and I started to feel hatred setting up in my heart. And I said, yo, I got to go get some help. I need to go talk to, because I live for my kids. And when I started doing the work and meeting with therapists, I realized like, yo, I felt this way because, and I'm about to drop something here. Most people think that men want respect, that men want honor. And through my research, my humble opinion, I don't think, even though those things are important, they're not really what men want and what men need. Inside of every man is a little boy who wants to be seen, who wants to be heard. But here's the thing, who wants to feel safe. And when a boy does not feel safe and he does not get that affirmation, that safe space from a father who loves him unconditionally and he knows will protect him, that same little boy, that same broken boy becomes a broken man. And my question is, where do broken men go? Man. Where do broken fathers go? I'll tell you. They go to prison and they go into the grave prematurely. And I knew when I went to that therapist's office that I had to do something different. And one thing that always grieved me growing up without a father is that I never had a father to tell me, son, this is who you are. Son, this is your name. This is what it means. This is a legacy. because anything I had, bro, I had to grind for. I was broke. When I tell you I was broke, I used to look where I lived at, there was a Chinese store that I could get a small thing of white rice, plain white rice, small thing for $1.15 at the time. And I would have to scrape up that $1.15 to get that rice. Then I would take some soy sauce because they gave it to you for free. And if I was being fancy, I got the other orange sauce and I put it on there and I mixed it up and I had a meal.
Did you
I
put
had a
Spam
meal.
in it?
Listen, I couldn't afford Spam because I couldn't afford it. No, I couldn't afford it, man. I was broke. Listen, I was so broke when I got moved out of my apartment that I was subleasing. I didn't know where I was going to go. I wound up sleeping on the floor with a dog of a college roommate's mom's house, on the floor in her living room with her dog, so that I wouldn't be on the street. So when I looked at my kids, I am doing the work that I'm doing because I want them to see that they have an inheritance, that they have a legacy, that when they, beyond me, I've written about 7 books now, and I write them because I want something to hand off to them. When I'm gone from the world, I want them to say, that was my dad. That's the work that he did. And it creates a pathway for them to follow.
Well, we appreciate, man. Your story is definitely powerful, and I know this hits both Cole and George, because Cole definitely worked with young fathers and young people, and George just made a post today that was pretty cool. That one of his clients was giving him a compliment about how he had a transformation in his life. So yeah, I mean, because he worked with young people in therapy, man. And I like young people. They dope, but I'm honest. That ain't my
I feel the
lane.
disclaimer coming.
That
Right.
ain't, you know what I mean? That ain't my lane. And so, no, honestly, man. So I just commend you, number one, telling this story, because one of my first groups that I ever had with my fatherhood program, if you guys see one of the pictures that have circulated for years, it was a man embracing another man. And people don't know what took place at that moment. We just wind up being able to capture it from an image. But I don't want to disclose his story because that's his story. But you can only imagine that one man who was 60 something years old was embracing another man that was 60 something because of what he revealed that day. And so when you talk about that, that is absolutely truth. And there's a lot of people here on social media that have gone through it, that are a father, that's raising kids, as a husband, and struggle with that because they don't have a safe space, don't know how to articulate it, right? And they have to go, some of them go to the grave with that. So I appreciate you being obedient to your assignment, right?
Yeah.
And taking charge in this space to saying that, you know what, send me, I'll go. And so I commend you, man, for the work that you do and how transparent, like George said, how transparent you are. Because there's not a lot of people who will talk about it. I know several men that have been assaulted, right? And they've gotten over it. They processed, the whole nine. But they know that that's not their assignment where they will come out. But, that's yours, man. I know it's not an easy thing to carry.
I gotta say this, Sean. I know this is your show, but if I'm never graced to be on your show again, I want your show, your followers to know I'm here because of you. I'm doing my work because when other people told me to cop out, when other people told me, Robert, that won't sell, Robert, you won't go far, Robert, this, and I listen, I tried not to do it. Matter of fact, I wrote a children's book, and my children's book blew up. It's in Walmart, it's in Target. I made $30,000 the first 3 months of my children's book. And I was conflicted because when everybody was telling me, hey, that's your ticket, run with it, Sean was like, Robert, stick to the assignment, it'll pay off. Just be consistent, just be faithful, stick to the assignment. And from that day to this day, I'm recording some projects, and I got some stuff that I can't even talk about that's happening. But there are literally thousands of men around the world who have reached out, who have said to me, man, I've never heard anybody talk about their experiences the way you have. And they always say, Robert, you've created the language that I felt inside, but I didn't have the words to say. So, Sean, I'm on your show, and I'm telling you, I'm doing it because you wouldn't let me move on from the assignment. So thank you, bro.
I appreciate that.
Really for that. I know Cole got to stop. I know Cole got to stop, but I got a legit and not legit that I want Cole to participate in before he gets off of here. I know you got to stop, Cole. Marshall, this was brilliant. I hope to just speak and engage and interact with you in the future. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My legit or not legit is this. Now, he just got through giving Sean all the accolades in the world, and I know Sean to be everything that he said he is, but I wouldn't be me if I didn't bring him back down. So my legit or not legit is Sean is a middle-aged, successful, well-known, well-sought-after businessman, role model, speaker, prolific in everything he do. Is it legit or not legit for him to have an ID rapper chain on right now? Put your arm down, Sean. Is that legit or not legit? Put your arm down, Sean, so our public can see.
I don't even think I paid attention.
Did you just
put your arm down, Sean, so our public can see what I'm talking about? Cole, is it legit or not legit?
Did you just say? Did you just say that? Did you just really say?
It was gifted to him by Snoop. I think Snoop flew it into him. Put it down. There you go. You saw. Is it legit? I think your chain fresh, bro. I'm gonna say it's legit.
Hey, wait. Hey, listen. Listen, I know y'all cool, but listen, I can't let you come from my bro. Listen, Ocho Cinco said the other day, he said he did a whole TV show where none of his jewelry was real, and he did it to save money. Ocho, so regardless if it's real or not,
Sean, I know it's real. That's not my point. I'm saying
you're killing the look.
I'm not saying if it's real or not. I know he's wearing real. I'm saying is it legit for him to have it at his age and stature and status? Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, it's George. It's legit.
It's legit to me too.
It's legit because
I love it, bro. Love it.
It's legit because look at the swag. Did you see the glasses?
Right.
Yeah.
Are y'all really going here?
Not flashy. I love it because it's not. He's not flashy, so I know it's out of his comfort zone.
Are you guys? Are you guys really doing that?
It goes with the hat and the glasses.
Yes,
it's a vibe. It is a vibe. It is
Step out there, bro. I love it. You shining, baby. You shining, big bro.
Y'all jerks for that. Y'all know my voice is jacked up.
I know you can't really fight me.
listen, Marshall, you dropped so much knowledge. We definitely have to have you back, and we need to have you in a real live experience. I mean, what you're doing is amazing. Yeah. Where can people find you?
Oh, sure enough. You can visit my website at IAmAManInc.org. That's IAmAManInc.org. Or you can follow me on any social media platform at Robert H. Marshall Jr. That's at Robert H. Marshall Jr. You can find, and that's any social media platform. Gotcha. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
I just put LinkedIn. I just put it in the chat.
No, that's the
Good.
wrong one.
Okay.
It's IAmAMan. IAmAMan
Oh,
Inc.
I am.
You
See,
forgot the man.
I gotta follow
You're sending people off.
instructions.
No, seriously, I joke a lot, but thank you for being here tonight, bro. Thank you so much.
Man, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Can I don't know if this is the end of the show or not, but if I can talk to any father that's listening, listen, the framework for the work that I do is healing is the journey, wholeness is the destination. I want you to know that there is a place called wholeness, and you don't have to suffer in silence by yourself. The truth is, the journey looks different for everybody, and no one can tell you how to heal. But healing happens, but wholeness happens one healing step at a time. And if you have been keeping this secret, you don't have to take it to your grave. I want you to hit me up, reach out, and I'll help you walk through your journey. All right? And we'll arrive to wholeness together.
All right, man. I appreciate
Thank you, brother.
Thank
Brother.
you.